Welcome back to the Damn Good Dawgcast. As you know, this is Robert Reynolds. For today, we're going to talk Arkansas football. And what better way to do it than bringing on Jeremy Hewen, host of Pot of the South. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Man, appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. So obviously with today, obviously we're talking Arkansas football. There's some special ties there with Georgia, being that Sam Pittman comes in as the head coach, obviously coming from the offensive line coach at Georgia, and me personally, I love the fact that he took a dream job. He was adamant about it. One to show emotion. I do like that, and I think a lot of Dog Nation was happy that he took that job, even though I wish he would have stayed with us. But I was happy for him that he took his dream job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so overall, this past season with the 10-game schedule, um, you know, in my opinion, he made a great first impression. Considering Arkansas's situation the past couple of years, wins 3 games. And before that, I looked at it in the sense of if he won 3 games, that is a huge statement for him. And he did that. So obviously, what's it like now that you have Pittman as your head coach? How are you feeling about it? And obviously, I like his hires as the coordinators as well. So how are you feeling about that?
I love it. I love Coach Pittman. I love what he brings to the table. Like you said, it's a dream job for him. It's not just some stop in the road. Like that's kind of what a lot of us Razorback fans felt whenever we hired Chad Morris. Was he really didn't care about Arkansas. He just wanted a big name job. And like you said, this is Sam's dream job. Grew up northeastern Oklahoma, lived closer to Fayetteville than he did Stillwater or Norman. So he grew up watching the Razorbacks week in and week out, and he knows what it takes to win at Arkansas. He was here beginning of Brett Bielema's era, and it was a little bit rocky. But the one thing that we saw was his way of developing players on that offensive line. And we're so happy to have him as our head coach, and it's refreshing to see someone that comes in here that knows what it takes to win the SEC. You look at Chad Morris. When he came in, a lot of people were high up on Chad Morris. I, on the other hand, was a little bit more skeptical. Everybody said, well, look what he did at Clemson with Deshaun Watson. Yeah, I'm cool with that. But let's look at his record at SMU. It was 14-22. And that's not –
It was rough, for sure.
It was rough. But, he didn't prove himself. We saw that he was in over his head. And you look at Coach Pittman, like I said, he knows how to win the SEC. And he brought in good coaching staff with him. He brought in Kendall Briles on the offense. People can say what they want about Art Briles or whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But I like Kendall Briles. I like what he brings to the table. I like the way he runs tempo, the way he spreads the field out. That's one thing that we're starting to see more and more of in the SEC is those Big 12 style offenses. With us at Arkansas, Ole Miss, we know how Matt Corral's going to be to stop this year. I think everybody's worried about Ole Miss. And the Archbishop of Air Raid himself, Mike Leach at Mississippi State. And you guys got Todd Monken down there. So we're seeing the offenses evolve. But also, I think the home run hire that he brought in with him at Arkansas was by far Barry Odom. I thought he kind of got screwed over at Missouri. Missouri don't know what their identity is. They were mediocre in the Big 12. So, I don't know what they felt like they were, but I felt like they let go of him too soon. That's my opinion. But I'm glad we got him because looking at where we're at now, we're getting a lot of transfers in from Missouri. Especially on the defensive line. We got Markel Utsi. We got Trey Williams coming over from Missouri. They played for Barry Odom, and they want to finish their career off playing for him. So that says a lot about them, that they're willing to step away from Missouri to come into Arkansas and play their last season with the coach that recruited them. So, but all in all, man, I'm very, very pleased with what we have with Coach Pittman. Like I said, it's refreshing to see somebody come in and knows what it's that they want to be at Arkansas more than anything else. A lot of the time you heard, I hate to keep bringing up Chad Morris. Chad Morris kept bringing up culture. Got to change the culture. Got to change the culture. I think that term gets thrown around a little bit too much sometimes. The culture in Arkansas was pretty good. We just needed to work on player development and get down the X's and O's, and that's what I like about Coach Pittman. He's old school. But yeah, I'm real high on him. Like you said, last year, 3 wins in the SEC was huge for us because I live here in the Tulsa metro area in Oklahoma and listen to sports radio here. You get, Oklahoma State, but you also get a lot of Arkansas talk. And everybody was saying there's no way Arkansas is going to win a single game. Not a single game. And then week 2, we go out and beat Mississippi State in Starkville after they just beat LSU, which we, at the time, we didn't know how down LSU was going to be. But go out and beat Mississippi State.
We also didn't know how good how bad Mississippi State was going to be either.
No, we didn't. But KJ Costello that first week, lighting up everybody. We were really concerned, and not gonna lie, I kind of felt like, well, let's see what we can do here. And we ended up winning the game, then beats Ole Miss, and then beats Tennessee, which I'm sure you were happy to see us take down the Volunteers. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a big step in the right direction.
Anybody that takes down Tennessee is a friend of mine, so I'm not mad about that one bit.
Yeah.
But
we're taking steps in the right direction.
Oh no, I mean, I have to agree with you that there at least. Excuse me. The addition of Briles, the addition of Odom, those were the 2 most important pieces. Obviously, with him being a new head coach, and he hit a home run for both, in my opinion. Looking at Arkansas from an outside standpoint, the past couple years prior to Pittman coming, you look at this team that had no kind of motivation to play. The defense was, just kind of soft, it seemed like, and then the offense was stagnant. But you look at, Pittman coming in, and then you see the change almost instantaneously where, you see the defense playing absolutely hard. They play physical. They're in your mouth. And maybe it's because of the change. I think, culture can only get you so far. Obviously you have to go out and compete. And I think Pittman, like you said, being that old school mentality, I think that's what happened. He knowing his time at Georgia, he was a great guy with the kids. You know what I mean, with the recruits. You can see your recruiting getting better, I think, in my opinion, too. Great recruiter. And one of the things that, I don't know if you were aware of this. I had Dean Ratledge, Tate Ratledge's father on earlier a while back. And one of the things that happened with Tate when he was about to commit, Pittman took the job at Arkansas. So obviously, as you can imagine, being a recruit, that's difficult when you're about to make that decision. He was about to commit that week. And one of the things that I think kind of tells Pittman's character and how genuine he is was he told Tate himself that he thought that he needed to stay at Georgia. That was the place for him to be, and how easy is it for a coach that, try to automatically go and recruit these guys to come back, or, come play for me. So hearing that story to me, just shows you how genuine of a guy Pittman is. So, from a Georgia fan to obviously an Arkansas fan, y'all got a good one. And I just hope that the fan base and the board of directors and whatnot and the athletics, department, whatever, they let him get his, give him time. I think Pittman will be just fine. Obviously, we saw the 3 wins, and that's a big step. It's a huge step. And it doesn't sound like a lot. It does, from an outsider standpoint, it doesn't mean a lot. But for Arkansas, obviously, I'm kind of feeling here. I'm sure that was a huge sigh of relief to win those games and have some momentum coming into 2021 season.
Yeah, and the other thing is you got to remember we should have been 5-5. I mean, I'm not going to relitigate the Auburn loss, but the SEC even came out and said, hey, I mean that shouldn't have happened. Arkansas should have won the game. Yeah. And LSU, we should have, we played them tight and we had the chance to win. We didn't. So, and even at that, more than likely, I think 6-5. If the Texas Bowl against TCU had not been canceled, I think we had enough momentum and the team was fighting hard enough that I think we would have probably went out. That would have been an above 500 season, for last year's standards. And like I said, compared to what we had before, starting off with Brett Bielema up to Chad Morris, I mean, it's night and day. And you got to remember, not having spring ball last year and playing like that was even better. And the first game of the year when you guys came up to Fayetteville, I mean, that was really to me like, hey, we might actually have something here that can win a couple games. So realistically, from my point of view, if we would have won one game last year, I would have felt that was a huge, huge step in the right direction, because the prior 2 years, we won 0 SEC games. We played a couple teams tough. So just to win in the SEC, man, that's all we asked for last year.
Well, let's be honest here. So for anybody that doesn't follow Arkansas that listens here, if you're a Georgia fan and you don't follow Arkansas whatsoever, he's not lying. Jeremy's not lying that they had lost every single SEC game for 2 years straight, and that is not something you want to see. And to me, you look at it was a surprise that Morris stayed that extra year, at least to me. But you look at the situation surprised. Where, well, yeah, I was about to say a lot of people probably were. But then you kind of look into the, Pittman's first season, right? And I know we're harping on this, but it needs mentioning, and it's really important, I think, for Arkansas, at least in my opinion, moving forward, that getting that first season in and actually having some success in comparison to the past 2 years. Like I had said prior to the season even starting last year, like I said, with 3 wins, Pittman's easily got his job secured for another 3 years, 4 years. I would think, unless something absolutely drastic happens.
Well, they've already signed a contract extension this week for him, so I think he'll be here. He's even said, he went on Bo Mattingly's Hog podcast and said that this is where he's retiring at. So hell or high water, he's going to be in Arkansas. If they fire him, then he's got a lot down in Hot Springs he's going to move into. So this is his dream job, and as long as, like I said, it's doing steps in the right direction. I think last year the best thing that happened for us was Felipe Franks transferring in and giving KJ Jefferson the chance to sit behind and learn from Felipe and kind of get some solid footing. And in the spring game, we saw that. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, though, he's making right decisions, and he's bringing in wise counsel with him. He's bringing in some great coaches, and that's another thing that we kind of noticed whenever before him, some of the hires that they brought in didn't really add up. Joe Craddock is the offensive coordinator. Nobody knew who he was, and he was supposed to bring in this Texas-style offense. Didn't work out. And then they brought in the original Will Muschamp, John Chavis, in. He made his tour of all the teams in the SEC, ended up in Arkansas, and that probably pretty much did it for him. We all knew it wouldn't work out. And now we got, like I said, with Barry Odom, we have all the faith in the world in this coaching staff. And I think as long – and the thing about it is we got to be realistic too. We got to be realistic in the fact that, the next couple of years, 7-5, 8-4, that's what we need to aim for. We don't need to have these grandiose ideas that we're going to go back to where we were with Bobby Petrino and go to the Sugar Bowl. It's going to be one step at a time. But the one thing that I will say, in the 2 years that Chad Morris was here, and even the years that Brett Bielema was here, right now, Sam Pittman has left the woodpile higher than he's found it. Whoever comes in is going to have a better job than what he inherited, because he's brought some steam behind his program and, winning his SEC games. Even with Brett Bielema, winning SEC games were few and far between. We would squeak one out against Ole Miss, or we squeak one out against whoever. And I think we're really starting to see a shift in momentum with the program itself, and the fact that we're starting to play a higher level, which is what, he promised, and he's delivering. He's a man of his word. And he admits up to his fault, but the things that he promised us in 1 year, we've seen it.
I mean, I'm gonna shoot a jab out here, and I know these Georgia fans are gonna love this, but you talked about him calling out as when he's at fault, he calls it out. Yeah, maybe Dan Mulligan down in Gainesville could take a note on that. But so obviously, yeah, we've talked about the coaching staff, the new regime. I want to hear what spring ball was like. Obviously leading up or culminating with the spring game. What were your takeaways from the spring camp, and maybe from a Georgia, if a Georgia fan's listening here, who are some names to know? You mentioned KJ Jefferson at quarterback. I think obviously that may be one. And Georgia understands the defense, right? Like before I let you go on that, the defense. There were some big plays made by you played, and obviously we're going to be playing again this year. But you're coming between the hedges. So from your standpoint, what were your takeaways of the spring game and the spring practice, I should say? And then who are some names that Georgia fans should know? I think that probably would be big names. Honestly, I'm sure X factors, for the program going into the game this season.
I think the spring was good for us all in all. I mean, we were able to see how these players develop in the offseason, and some of them we kind of saw go as par. I mean, we knew KJ would develop nicely. Our backup quarterback, Malik Hornsby, which I guess they really haven't announced KJ as QB1 yet, but Malik, there's a few question marks there about his decision-making throwing the ball. He is a more mobile quarterback, and I think we'll see some sets where both will be playing quite a bit this season. Transfers we utilize, and I've noticed about Sam, he's doing pretty good in the transfer portal. Like I said, we got two guys from Missouri, Markel Utsi and Trey Williams. We also got Johnny Ridgeway, comes in from Illinois State, and he was highly sought after. I think Michigan, USC, some other programs came after him. One of the biggest, I think, punches in the stomach that we're not really talking about at Arkansas is the fact that we lost our wide receiver coach, Justin Stepp, and he's heading over to South Carolina with Coach Shane Beamer. And that left open the vacancy. That was our one vacancy for the year was the wide receiver coach. And so we got Kenny Guyton from Colorado State, and people remember that name. He played for Ohio State, and real good player, and he seemed like a good coach. But as far as the spring game went, I feel like there's a few question marks I had. The few question marks I really saw was some things in the offensive line. And last year, that was one of our biggest concerns, the offensive line. But like I said, I look at Sam Pittman and look at his past and see how he's developed the offensive line. And I think he's going to fix some of those things. KJ Jefferson, like I said, to me is the clear QB1. After him, it would be Malik Hornsby. John Stephen Jones, who's the grandson of Jerry Jones, probably be our third string. And we got some really good guys coming up away. The biggest kick in the teeth, though, we got in the offseason was we went through spring ball, played the spring game, and then 3 days later, our number one receiver, Mike Woods, announces he's going in the transfer portal. And then 3 days later, he announces he's going to play for the University of Oklahoma. And that hurt for a multitude of reasons because it was just the timing was weird. He had a really good spring game. And 3 days later, so my job here in Tulsa, I also work in Springdale, Arkansas, which is just straight north of Fayetteville. I was working in Springdale that Tuesday, and I was listening to the radio, and so there's some big news coming out. Nikki Chavanel from Hogbeat said that Mike Woods is going to transfer, and it's kind of bizarre. And there's questions between him and Pittman. That got squashed pretty quick. And then it came out there could be some problems there between him and Coach Guyton. However, that turned out not to be the case. He just wanted to go to Oklahoma, which is bizarre timing because their star receiver, Trajan Bridges, one of their star receivers, he won't be QB1 going into Oklahoma. Marvin Mims will be their number one receiver. Yeah. But Trajan Bridges gets in trouble for some drug-related robbery charges, and that happens, gets kicked off the team. Then here comes Mike Woods coming in. So not saying there's tampering, but it sure kind of feels like it. So he left.
It's coincidental, if at best, basically.
Yeah, it's a strange deal. But I'd say, all in all, though, the players kind of keep your eyes on for this year. If you don't know the name Jalen Catalon, you will by the end of the season. He's an outstanding free safety for us. He's a real physical. I mean, he he was making plays in that spring game, just leveling our own guys. It's like, gosh, dang, this guy knows how to play. But he had a great season last year. Some other names to watch out for. Of course, Grant Morgan on the linebacker position has been a big factor for us since he stepped on campus as a walk-on. His brother Drew Morgan played for us as a wide receiver. Trey Knox is probably going to be our best receiver coming out of this deal. But we also got Traylon Burke, who's just as good. I don't know. In my opinion, they're about equal. So we got a really good receiving core still. And Traylon Smith, our running back, transferred in from Arizona State. So we've got a good group of guys. Like I said, the thing I'm kind of keeping my eye on the most is the offensive line and seeing how Coach Pittman can develop it and mold it to what we know he can have. I mean, watching what he did with you guys, with Isaiah Wynn and those guys were just absolute monsters, pancaking people. So looking forward to it. So I think our spring ball ended up being a pretty good success. A few things we need to work on, but it's year 2. So we had some big names leave. We got some big names coming in. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to see how it goes from here on to the fall, because we've got a schedule that is pretty tough, and we're going to see how we can navigate it with KJ at the helm. So.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is I guess you could have made a more perfect transition. Obviously, we're going to talk your schedule. So for anybody watching on video, you can follow along here. Opening up the season against Rice, and then you go to Texas. Looks to be Georgia Southern, Texas A&M, Georgia, and Ole Miss. So we'll start, the first 6 games and then work on the back half here. I think Rice will be a good statement win for you. Texas, I think, in a situation where I just don't know if you have the, talent to beat Texas. I think Texas is just too talent in the gap right there. And then let's just keep it up for, I guess, Georgia Southern, I think that's a winnable game. A&M, I know A&M is going to be a powerhouse in the West. I would love for y'all to, to stump them and win. I just don't see that happening. Obviously, that Texas A&M, Georgia, and Ole Miss stretch right there is really brutal for a lot of teams. And I think Arkansas is going to have some struggles there. But at the end of the day, I do think that, you're competitive here. But, I think you lose to Texas A&M. Georgia, I think, y'all played us physical as hell last year. I just think that Georgia's going to pull away on this one. I don't know if it's going to be a true blowout, but I do think that Georgia wins. And then Ole Miss is kind of a toss-up for me. I see their offense, their high-powered offense, but y'all's defense is really stingy, and the secondary is as well. So maybe your defense will be the first problem that Matt Corral and company sees, but their defense isn't where it needs to be for Ole Miss. So depending on the situation, I look at that as a possible upset for at least in the media's eyes. So going into that back half of the season, I could honestly see a 3-3 season. That's what I'm gonna make my prediction. What do you see? And I'll put it back up for you.
I'm seeing 4-2 is what I'm thinking. Rice, they're the bottom feeders. I mean, they're one of the worst teams every year, and I don't want to overlook anybody, but like I said, that's a great way to start the season off. Man, there's a lot of people that say who's Arkansas's rival, who's their biggest rival, and to me, even though we don't play hardly ever, is Texas. I absolutely hate Texas. Goes back to the Southwest Conference days. It's going to be. They announced this week that it will be in Fayetteville, and it will be they announced it a long time ago to Fayetteville, but it's going to be a night game. So I am going to say we're going to pull out the victory there, just because it's my arch rival, and they've got some question marks too, with Ellinger being gone and some of those receivers being gone down there. Joseph Osai, they're missing some pieces, and be a transition year with Coach Sarkisian and Kyle Flood and all those guys going down there to coach Texas. I think we actually pull the victory out there. I think it'll be close. But being in Fayetteville under the lights, I'm going to say that we win that one. Now, Georgia Southern, I'm going to say this. That game could be tricky. That game could be a trick, especially if we win that Texas game. That could be a sleeper because they do have a pretty talented team. And as far as Sun Belt goes, they're one of the better Sun Belt teams. So I'm going to go ahead and say that, we're going to win that game, but we got to be careful. Georgia Southern could sneak up on us and score some points. And if we're not on our game, we might lose that one. But that's a long shot. But I do think that's a game of all of our group of 5 opponents that we're playing this year. That's the one I'm most concerned about for sure. A&M, man, it's the most frustrating rivalry that we have. We actually started this rivalry back up in 2009, and that's when they were still in the Big 12. In 2009, 2010, 2011, the Hogs won the game. And then 2012, they come in the SEC, and we haven't beaten them since. So, but the games have been really, really, really close. I think we can play them close. I don't know. I'm not going to say we're going to beat them, though. I won't say that we're going to beat A&M until we actually beat them on the field. I've said it so many times, so I'm going to agree with you there. I think that they win, but I do think it'll be close. Maybe 7-10 point game. Georgia, however, I think we'll play them tough. I think we'll be competitive week in and week out, but you guys got too much firepower with JT Daniels and all the guys that you guys have out there. I do not see us winning that game. Ole Miss, though, I do see us winning. I think they've got about another year. Matt Corral, like I said earlier, can throw it around, but he threw it around last year, and Hudson Clark picked him off, I think, 4 times. Jalen Catalon, like our backfield, they'll get back there on them. It will be close, though. I think every game that we win this year, except for Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Rice, will be pretty close games. So, I don't think we got firepower to beat you guys, but I do think we will go down to Oxford and beat Ole Miss.
All right, so you're calling 4-2. I'm calling 3-3. Obviously, that's already tying the last amount of wins from last year. All right, so we're going to move on to the back half here. So you start, the back half against Auburn, and then it looks to be, is that Arkansas Pine Bluff?
I believe it is. Pine Bluff, yeah.
Yep. So, and then after that, I think you have a bye week, and then you play Mississippi State.
Yep.
Then LSU, Alabama, and Missouri. And your back half is, I feel like your schedule is evened out with some struggles, patches, and some easy spots. I'm going to make my
that's the thing. That's the thing, Robert. People aren't really paying attention to is these games. We go on the road to Georgia. We go to Ole Miss. Then we got LSU and Alabama on the road also. So, that's about as tough as a stretch as you're going to find. And even though it's technically our home game against A&M playing in Dallas, it's going to be a lot of Aggie fans there. So, you look at this road schedule, and it's pretty tough, and I think if we can at least get to 500 with this schedule, I'll feel pretty good. So.
Yeah, looking at this back half, though, I think Auburn is going to be one of those question mark teams in the West. With Harsin there now instead of Gus, how that transition is going to be. I really don't trust Bo Nix, so I could see y'all giving him fits and perhaps taking away a victory there. So I'm going to give you the benefit of a doubt and go you win against Auburn. Moving on to Pine Bluff. I think that's a mismatch, and I think Arkansas wins that. Then you look at Mississippi State. I think your defense wins that game for you. So you've looked at 3 wins right there. And then I hate to say it, but LSU and Bama, I think those are losses. And I know LSU played subpar last year, but they're going to be way better than they were last year. They were down, but I think they're going to rebound in a big way. So I think losses to LSU, losses to Bama. And then moving to Missouri, which is a good wild card matchup, in my opinion, because both teams are in that. Well, I'd say Arkansas is a little bit below in this regard, but you're competitive. But at the end of the day, you're probably around the middle of the pack in the West and the East. but I think you could pull it. I think you pull a win there too. And that's you talking about obviously coming off of two big losses there against LSU and Bama. Pulling that season together and coming away with a win to end the season. I think is a big deal for Pittman moving forward into year three. It's going to help with recruiting, I think, because you'll be bowl eligible based off of predictions here. Because you're looking at 7-5, and compared to 3-7 last year, and sure it was a COVID year. That's huge. That is absolutely huge for Pittman. That's huge for the Arkansas fan base, and it's just for Arkansas football moving forward. That's a big step, especially from year one. What we thought was a big step, even two or even bigger at year two, based off at least my prediction. So with that being said, what is your prediction for the back half?
I mean, I'm with you. I don't trust Bo Nix. I do think Brian Harson's a pretty good coach. I can't predict his success, what he'll have at Auburn all in all, because it's such a hard place to play if you don't have a great coach, because you're smack there between Georgia and Alabama. I think we'll win that game. Can you put that screen back up real quick?
Yeah, sorry.
Get the screen. Sorry, you're good. I couldn't remember if we had Mississippi State or Arkansas Pine Bluff. Yeah, Pine Bluff, that will be an easy win for us, our easiest win of the year. Mississippi State, like I said, I mean, Mike Leach, I think he'll get things going down there. But I still like Ole Miss to me. They still got another year for, they're really primed up and ready to go. So right there, 3 wins in a row. LSU, Max Johnson's going to be a great quarterback down there. I think we'll end up seeing Miles Brennan transferring out. Last year, I don't think was any kind of indication that they're falling down. I think it was just with all the talent that they lost from that talented team the year before. They're going to be better this year for sure. Alabama, we'll skip that one. We already know how that one's going to end up. Missouri is also a game that I'm not going to pick Arkansas until we can beat them. Since we've had this rivalry started back up, I think it was 2014, we've only beaten them once. And the overall record is 9-2. And I have got to see it to believe it. So I actually think that Missouri wins that game. I hate to say it. I mean, it hurts me to say it. I don't know if I'm really big on Drinkwitz yet. I can't get a feel on him. But I do think that they're a little bit above the grade for us. And I think that they could be a surprise team in the East. They might be second or third. I don't know yet. It's going to be interesting to see because I think they got a really good quarterback in Basilak. So we'll see. But, yeah, so that finished up the season. What is that? Went at Auburn. That's 7-5 I got to. So 8-4.
Maybe. It may be 6-6 or 7-5.
Yeah, either way. I'm from Oklahoma.
Either way, you're both eligible based off of predictions. I know you would mention Texas as kind of being the upset game, at least the way I took it. I'm gonna say that the biggest chance for an upset for Arkansas this year is at LSU, and I think yes, LSU is going to be better, but you look at the offense with Max Johnson, and Max Johnson looked good against Florida, right? But Florida's defense is hot doo-doo, in my opinion. And Arkansas's defense is better than Florida's. So I think you could see obviously the offensive talent is, the gap, right? The talent gap is there. But, the performance, I think defensively, I think you can hold down the run game for sure. The X factor there is Keyshawn Butte, right? Dude is a great receiver. But offensively, I think you look at, your offense, and I think that's the key as well on the opposite side of the ball, because you have to be able to move it on LSU's stingy passing defense, because Eli Ricks and Stingley, those two are arguably the best tandem in college football. So it's going to be difficult to pass the ball, I would say, find tight ends and, open up with the run game, things like that. So I think it'll be a defensive matchup. But I think if you keep it at a defensive matchup and you stop LSU and limit their offense, I think that's why Arkansas has a good shot to upset LSU there. And I know you had talked about Texas, but I think Sarkisian bringing that offense, and I know what we saw last year with him at Bama is, it was amazing to watch. But you look at the talent he had. I'm telling you, Texas recruits these guys, and they still have the talent there. Now, the scheme is what you're going to be looking for. Are you still going to see those kind of things in the Sarkisian-led Longhorn team? And I think you will, because the scheme, right, from if you played Bama, we played Bama last year. The scheme opened these guys up. You saw Devontae Smith just cut across the field and slide in right over, like right in between the safeties and stuff, right over the back of the safeties, when you had the guy cutting across from the other side. So, those kind of plays right there, I think you're going to see that transition into the Big 12. And, and obviously with Texas. So that's why I didn't choose Texas as the upset game. Like I said, the LSU game, I think defensively you can cause Max Johnson or Miles Brennan, whoever it is down in Baton Rouge, give them some problems. And I think their offensive line, in the trenches, I think your defensive line can cause some problems too, and get to whoever the quarterback they're playing. So that's why I'm saying I think the defensive, scheme and the defensive performance seems to fit better to the upset of LSU more so than Texas to me.
Yeah, I honestly, if I wasn't such a Texas hater, I probably agree. But it'd be like you going for Tennessee. Yeah, I can't do it. But I totally agree with you, though. I think he will bring in a different style of offense that even Texas hasn't seen, and he'll be able to recruit Texas, because that's one thing, with that program is there's so many players out of state of Texas not going to the flagship university in Texas, which is the University of Texas. It's slowly shifting into a Texas A&M state, and that's bad news for us, though. That's bad news for us, but we'll get through it. So,
I think you will.
I just wish we had Tennessee for 3 more years to play, because they had probably the worst coaching hire of anybody this past year. So I just wish we
that is very. I would have to somewhat agree there. I think you could look at, and we can. I mean, you could. That's another rabbit hole if you're not careful. The coaching hires. I questioned Harsin, but at the same time, you look at Heupel. I think Heupel's got to be the worst.
Heupel's an idiot. Heupel will. I mark my words right now. In 3 years, Tennessee will be finding a new head coach, and he'll be down in Alabama at Nick Saban's little analyst academy. It won't work. He left Oklahoma. Yeah, maybe not 3 years, but he left Oklahoma on such bad terms, and then he got himself in a good situation at Utah State with Matt Wells, got a good situation at Missouri, and he landed a freaking eagle's nest on the ground at UCF. When he gets to Tennessee, he's going into a train wreck. He's not been into a bad situation like this. And I think Tennessee, if they're not careful, they are going to be the absolute bottom feeder of the SEC East behind Vanderbilt. I mean, and I think Clark Lee's a better coach than I know it's not Arkansas, but I don't like Heupel.
No, so looking at that right there, I think you're right. There's a good chance. But before we let you go, tell everybody where they can find you, man.
Yeah, for sure, appreciate it. I'm on Pod of the South. We actually haven't launched yet. I'm aiming for my launch date to be probably end of June, 1st of July. And if you like the Arkansas Razorbacks, definitely listen in. My goal at first was for me to have an SEC podcast and cover everybody. But at this point in time, I'm one guy, and it's hard to cover 13 teams, especially when you're having to cover Vanderbilt recruiting, which I really don't care about. So I'm hoping my goal is to launch it off as this, and then hopefully one day get some contributors to all 14 teams in the SEC and truly make it the Pod of the South and make it. So we'll get it going for you. And like I said, I'll be going on Twitter. It's under Pod of the South, and find me there. And hopefully by midsummer, we will be kicking off some good Razorback content for you.
Good deal, man. Hey, I know you talked about Vanderbilt recruiting. Reach out to my guys at the Door Report, man. They're pretty intense there. They know their stuff when it comes to Vanderbilt. So if you ever need that connect, shout out to the Door Report.
Yeah,
So
well, and I'm not bashing Vanderbilt. I'm just saying.
I mean, we can. Georgia,
We
look, Georgia
can.
fans. I even told them when they were on, we have some resentment towards Vanderbilt, man. Canceling
Yeah.
twice, but playing Tennessee, like
Yeah.
that stings a little bit. So you kind of push you kind of nudge the big dog a little bit. You woke him up from his nap, kind of pissed him off, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, man. Hey, thanks again for coming on. I really enjoyed you having on, and thanks for the insight, for Arkansas, and giving us Georgia fans a little bit of insight of what to expect. When we play, when y'all come to Athens and play us again. So, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah. Are you going down to the Arkansas Georgia game?
I'm a C. I'm not sure yet. It
Let
would
me
be a
know if
little
you
bit of a
do.
drive for me, though. So,
Let me know if you do. I might catch a Delta flight down to Atlanta. So.
uh-oh. Uh-oh. All right, man. Hey, like I said, thanks for coming on, and good luck with the podcast, man. I know I'll be
Yes,
following it.
sir.
Hey, anybody listening, make sure to tune in and subscribe to that, and be ready for when he launches it. So
Yes, sir.
there you go.
All right. Woo big.
All right. All right, guys. That is all I've got for today. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. Obviously, Arkansas is an upcoming program. I think Pittman, was a huge success for us, and I think him coming to Arkansas is a big deal. As you can tell, the 3 wins, doesn't sound like a lot, but moving forward, I think Arkansas is going to be a team to worry. With other teams in the West, I think you can give Arkansas fits, or Arkansas can give Auburn fits. You can see LSU getting fits from them. So it's important to understand, not only because they're coming to Athens this season, but if Sam Pittman does what I'm thinking he can do, you could look at Arkansas making that resurgence and come back to the top to middle of the West and be maybe a dark horse West winner, or at least second place, perhaps. I don't think Bama gets stopped too much. But other than that, though, guys, look, thank everybody again. Make sure you like, subscribe. You can catch the video on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. So go subscribe on YouTube. You can listen to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, lots of different platforms, wherever you listen. Check out www.damngooddawgcast.com. You can find out it has links to everything that you need. So with that note, though, guys, go Dogs, and I will catch you around on the next episode.